Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chaos and Order Art by Susan Holt. That is me. Today, I am doing a demo for a friend that asked. She lives in another state. So she asked me if I could do a demo for her on these little cactus painted rocks for Pride Month. And it is June 2025. So I've been making these super sparkly, pretty rocks for Pride Month to go set out and bring some happiness to people who are feeling a little bit or a lot of it targeted at the moment. So if I can bring a little bit of joy to people's lives, that is my goal as an artist. I don't care if some people say it's unprofessional or hokey. That is absolutely fine with me. Art makes you happy. Art makes you feel something. And if my art makes you feel happy, then I am overjoyed with that. So we're going to go ahead and get started. First, I am going to walk you through the supply list, which I have over here off camera. The one I have printed up for my workshop that I'm teaching is not quite complete because the people I'm teaching it for are artists, professional artists. So they already kind of know what they need to bring to the workshop. And this is going to be my walkthrough for teaching the workshop as well. So I hope you learn a lot, and I hope this is eye-opening because this might take a while to do. So I hope you have some time to spend with me today. And of course, for those of you who enjoy this video, thumbs up, hearts, like and subscribe, please and thank you. And of course, comments, questions, I will get to them when they pop up. So please let me know if you have anything you want me to talk about. I am not doing this live, so I will get to your questions and your comments as they come through after I post this video. I don't know. Yes. Anyhow, materials and supplies list. First thing we're going to need are some rocks. This is a big rock. Well, it's kind of medium for what I work with, but it's a pretty good size. It takes up, most of my hand. You do not have to use rocks this size. For today, I will be using much smaller rocks for this demo because if you throw smaller rocks at a window, they don't generally go through that window. And since we're talking about Pride Month, I want to make sure that everybody has right size rocks to not really damage property or a person. So we're going to do the smaller rocks today. And while we're talking about safety with rocks, with painted rocks, when you go and set them out, you never want to put them in grass or anywhere that they could wreck landscapers, lawnmowers, or edge trimmers or other kind of tools of the trade that they use to take care of people's landscaping or your own if you do your own yard. So put them on solid surfaces where they can be found. That could be like up in a tree, it could be on the sidewalk in plain sight. A lot of people call these hidden rocks, but I prefer to think of them as art pieces that people can easily find. So that is my safety blurb for this video. So we're going to get started. I'm going to show you basically what you're going to need for these. And because they're sparkly, you're not going to need one kind of acrylic paint. You're going to need two. So you're going to need your standard plain acrylic paint that you can buy. You can use any kind of acrylic paint. You can use craft store paint. You can use the expensive paint. It does not matter. And then, of course, I've got my shiny paint. Oh, sparkly. It's less glittery than it is pearlescent, and I have several different colors. So we're going to need our paints, and yes, this is acrylic paint. We don't paint rocks with oil paints because they take too long to dry, honestly. If you're using other water media like gouache or watercolor paint, you can certainly do that. I do not. Mostly because a lot of times if you don't get your sealant on correctly, it just washes off. So we don't want that to happen. You'll also need gesso that is based for acrylic paint. There's gesso that goes with both oil and acrylic combo. There's gesso that goes with just acrylics. There's gesso that goes with just oil paints. So when you go to the art supply store, please make sure you get a jar of gesso that says on the label for acrylic paint, because that's what you're going to be using. You will also need, if you want to use it, I have a polymer UV varnish, and I have used this on rocks before, and honestly with the spray I use, it doesn't necessarily seem to help or hurt in one way or another. And the spray I use is this one. Yes, I'm covering up the title because I'm not sponsored. So, and I do use the satin. Satin is not so, it's not matte, so it doesn't look flat and bland, and it's not, oh, I forgot the word. Oh my gosh, this is what happens when you're in menopause. It's not shiny. I know that's not the technical word. Gloss. There we go. Got it. It's not gloss, so it's not super shiny. Here on the black, you can see that it's kind of got this nice sheen, but not shine. And that's the difference between satin and gloss, or satin and matte. Matte is basically what the paint looks like. There's no shine to it at all. And matte just will cover it and coat it and seal it and protect it. So we got paints, we got those. We need labels on the back of our rocks. If you want to do a paper label like I do and then sign it, sign and date like I do, that is absolutely a possibility. These are super easy. I have ones that go on larger rocks and ones that go on smaller rocks, and I just use my computer to type them up and my printer to print them out. Then I cut them, and then I put them on with this kind of glue that's watered down just a little bit. So basically decoupage. And I know we all know what that kind of glue is, what that brand, so I'm not gonna show the brand, but it is a school glue that you can use for decoupage, and I find it works really well. And because we're going to use our spray to coat this afterwards, the labels stay on really well because that spray does have some protection from water if you put it down in a place that gets rained on or sprinkled from sprinklers on. So that is for the, I think that's everything for the paint and stuff. You will also need, if you want, paint pens. These are acrylic markers that I buy at my art supply store, and they come in several different colors. I have black, gray, and white, and I use those to sign and date my rocks that I put out. I also use them to sign and date my paintings on canvas because it's a lot easier than using a brush. It looks a lot more professional, and the paint in them is of a sufficient quality these days that I don't mind using them. They're going to get sealed on my paintings. They're going to get sealed with the the UV varnish and potentially another varnish on top of that. You will need a rinse bucket. This is my rinse bucket I've had since like 2005. It's just a large yogurt container. So I didn't spend any money on that. And then my brushes, you're gonna need several different sizes of brush. This one is a 1-inch brush, and it is the one I use for gesso. You can see how beat up it is. And these brushes are over 15 years old, my blue ones. You'll also need a 1/2-inch brush, and that is for putting some of the paint on the rock. And I have another brush. It's just a little bit bigger than the 1/4 of an inch, and those are my flat brushes. And then for the cactus designs, I really like to use these curved brushes, and I have 2 of them. This one's about 1/4 of an inch, and this one is 1/8 of an inch-ish. And then for the smaller details, I have 2 little round brushes. There we go. They're itty bitty. Well, itty bitty for what we need, but they'll help with some of the cactus that are smaller off in the distance, and the little birds I put on. Then you can use the rounded end of your paintbrush, or you can use one of these dot tools or these metalworking tools, whatever you want to call them. You don't have to buy a specific tool for this. Like I said, you can buy the end of your brush. And when we put our little setting sun on there, that little dot, that is what we will use that for. Because honestly, it's a lot easier to just poke onto a rock than it is to paint a circle, paint a perfect circle. So I think that is what we need. That's everything we need. You'll need some paper towels as well. This is the paper towel that I use currently to blot the water off of my brushes. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to point the camera down at the table, my work table, so you can see what's going on down there, and not my cute little face. You don't need to see that while I work. You need to see what I'm doing. Okay, I think that's gonna be pretty good. Put that over more. There, now you can see my hands. Excellent. Okay, so I'm not gonna show you how to put gesso on a rock. I use this brush, and I literally just paint it on. I let the top and the sides dry, put on a second coat, then I let that dry, and then I turn it over and I do 2 more coats on the bottom. And I will actually do 1 coat this way. After it dries, I will do another coat the opposite direction, because these rocks that I'm using are natural rocks. They're not ones that I have poured with concrete. They don't have a smooth surface. So 2 coats of gesso will do nicely on a rock. I already have some prepared over here. This is the layout of how we're going to work. So blank rock, gessoed rock. Now we're going to do the top of the rock. So the way I figure out what is the top of the rock is I set the rock down and I let it rock back and forth. Whatever way the rock tips less, that is the bottom. Gives me a more easily worked on base. Yes, it gives me a more easily worked on base, so that my rock does not get super tippy and go back and forth when I'm trying to paint a straight line, which these have in it in an abundance. This design, I have actually gone through and blended the colors together where they meet. The design we're working on, I did not do that. I have very straight lines that are not blended. So that's what we're going to do today, is not blend those lines. But you can absolutely do that. Also, I have multiple rocks over here. I have 5 little rocks that I have set aside to do this. And the reason I have 5 rocks set aside is it takes just as much time to do 5 rocks for me as it does 1 rock. So I have dipped my paintbrush in water to get the bristles ready for the paint. I have also dabbed it off on my paper towel, and I also go up here and I take the water off of the ferrule and off of the grip. So I'm going to go ahead and start painting. And I always want to make sure which direction I want my paint to go on these rocks. So I want I like it when the lower part of the rock is the front part. So I don't know if you can see this one, but it's kind of got a thicker side here and a thinner side over here. So this thinner side is the one that I would consider facing the audience, facing the viewer. So I want my stripes to go up and down. Yes. So I think I'm going to paint it this way. And you'll notice I have not marked out where I want these lines to go, but on a rock about this size, I can just take my finger and go, oh, my little finger, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the paint colors, since it is the rainbow. But I generally don't mark them out. I just eyeball them. Then I can go on and go right over that little line that I drew with my pencil. I realize that not everybody is going to have the skill to pull a straightish line. And that's okay. Mine aren't necessarily straight either, but you can tidy them up. You can tidy them up too on yours. This red covers pretty nicely. So I'm gonna go through just paint the red on the rest of these. You can paint along with me if you would like. If you've got all your stuff set up, if you went through and did a preliminary watch of this video, or you just watched the beginning where I told you all my tools and materials. And this is a little bit longer of a rock, so my colors can be a little bit wider in the stripes on this rock. And yes, I do paint a little bit of the undercut on the bottom of the rock, because we are going to go over that with white, or you could go over it with black or whatever neutral color you want, simply because I just want a finished edge, a finished look to the bottom of the rock. That is me being a persnickety professional artist. The bottom of your rock doesn't have to look that good, but since I label it with my my name, my hashtags, my website, I want to make sure that it looks good. I want to make sure it looks good. If you're just putting these out for someone to find and you don't care if they find your website, if they hashtag you in a local painted rocks group, then you don't have to put any of that on there. I know plenty of rock artists here in the Phoenix metro area that don't put anything on the back of their rocks. Some of them don't even paint the bottoms of their rocks. So you get to do what you want to do with your rocks. You're the artist. You get to paint them however you want. And as you can see, this red that I've already put on is pretty much, it's tacky at the moment, but it's on its way to dry pretty quickly. If I were doing a similar design on a canvas, I would measure everything out and make sure it was perfect. But I'm not. This is not a canvas. This is a rock. And this orange is has a little less coverage than the red does. So you're going to see through it on the rock, which is fine. Because we're going to go over it with another paint. Similar color. It's going to be an orange, but it's a shiny paint. So what I'm doing by painting the regular paint on the bottom first is making sure that you cannot see through the paint. And what that does is it gives your sparkly colors a little bit more depth of color, a little more solidity. So it doesn't just look like somebody used some wispy paint like this orange. And when I do use this orange, since it is so thin, I do usually do 2 coats. And if I'm using a craft store paint, I'll do 2 coats as well. The coats of paint have to dry in between, otherwise you get smudges everywhere. And it doesn't look very good. We want our rocks to look good. I want my rocks to look good, my painted rocks. To me, they are still an expression of my artistry. And yes, you might pick up some of the color above. That's fine. Again, it's painted rock, it's not the Mona Lisa. If you're painting the Mona Lisa on a rock, you are a much better painter than I am. I do not have the attention span to paint the Mona Lisa in the first place. So, yeah. And I usually have music on while I'm painting my rocks. Well, I usually have music on when I'm painting just about anything. Don't worry, I'm not going to force you to listen to the music I like if you don't like the same music. Just have to listen to me prattle on about these rocks. So we have 2 colors of our rainbow done on our 5 little rocks. Rinse out the brush. And I don't have a good yellow with this kind of paint. So I had to bring out the big guns, as it were. So, my little container, plop a little bit of yellow in there. This yellow is gooey, kind of sticks to everything. Yellow on my fingers. My hands will be completely rainbow splotched by the end of this. It happens. If you are allergic to acrylic paint, please feel free to wear gloves. I don't know of anyone who is allergic to acrylic paint personally, but I do know that some people react to certain colors or to certain manufacturers. So if you're unsure that you're going to react to it, I find that I like to use the blue nitrile gloves when I pour paint, because that stuff gets everywhere and sometimes it's a little hard to scrub off my hands. So hubby is kind enough to go, and when he needs something at the discount hardware store, he picks me up a couple boxes at a time. And that way, I have them on hand. Haha, on hand, haha. Unintentional pun. Oy. I don't know about you, but when I paint, my brain kind of goes into this zone where I get very quiet. But I'm going to try not to do that today, because I have information to impart to you during each step. But this is kind of the fun part. Just getting to paint. Getting to paint, getting to be here with you today. It's all good. I will likely post this video after I do my workshop, because it is a paid workshop. So and me putting my finger there, it's about the halfway mark, so that's how I'm measuring. Mostly eyeballing it. If you are not comfortable doing that, I understand. Spatial awareness is kind of my art jam. It is my art superpower. So if you want to put a pencil mark on there like I did on the first rock, feel free. Whatever helps you be confident in your creations is only going to make you happier. A tool is a tool. If you need to use a tool, if you want to use a tool, use them. When I do my rocks with bubbles on them, I like my circles to be very precise. So I use a stencil. It's not a big deal. We, mankind, makes tools, so we, mankind, can use them. I should say humankind. Humankind. You want to use a tool, use a tool. You want to use a specific paint, use a specific paint. Oh, if you have a bunch of different house paints that you're never going to use again, like exterior paints, that's really good for painted rocks because you know it's going to be out in the weather. And I wouldn't even seal those, honestly, with a sealant spray because it's exterior paint. But you would want to paint them outside. And I do live in Phoenix, and it is June, and I am not going to paint outside. It's hot out there, so that's just not going to happen. And I just dumped my little container in my rinse bucket because that is all of that yellow I'm going to need for this video. Let me slide these over so you can see them in progress. What that does is I can go back and wash out my my little container that I just used after I get done with all of this, and the paint will not be completely adhered to the plastic. Oh, got a little shaky on that one. That's okay. Again, it's painted rock, not the Mona Lisa. I used to teach new people to painting in a hobby group, and I still say to this day, it's okay, it's only paint. Somebody would make a line that didn't make sense to them or did what I just did and got a little sloppy. It's okay. It's okay. It's just paint. Most of the time, especially with water media paints, acrylic, watercolor, gouache. And gouache is just simply a more opaque, less transparent form of watercolor. If you let the paint fully dry, you can just go over it with what you intended on in the first place. It is correctable. What I like about water media paints instead of oil paints is the dry time is pretty instant. It's pretty immediate. So you don't have to wait until oil paint dries. And like I said, do not use oil paint on your rocks. I do have a couple of collage artists who may be joining our painted rock workshop. And they were talking to me at the monthly meeting up at Arizona Artists Guild. And they said, oh, you know, I'm not a really good artist. I'm a collage artist. I was like, but collage is art. And if you're not really comfortable drawing or painting, bring your collage supplies and collage a rock. I have rocks from other artists and other friends who paint rocks that are collaged. I even have one that is Zentangled. So if you love to do Zentangles, the process is very similar. You're going to gesso your rock. You're going to paint the background white instead of in a rainbow, unless of course you want to paint it with a rainbow, then you can do that. And then once the paint is dry, and I would leave it to dry at least overnight. Here in the Phoenix metro area, it takes just overnight for the paint to dry and cure. When it's cured, it is no longer tacky to the touch, and it has a nice dry surface that you can draw on over it. So if you wanted to get out your pens and do a Zentangle rock, absolutely do that. Literally, there's no one stopping you. So there's a bunch of different things you can do with painted rocks, or with art rocks, whatever you want to call them. So you can see on this rock, this is the first one I've been picking up and working with, you can see that the paint is mostly dry by the time I get back around to it. So that is the example of why I work with several rocks at a time. And these rocks do not have to all be rainbow rocks. They can have different color themes. You can do a plain background. You can do a background where you speckle the back with your toothbrush, your used, old, not used. You can use an old used toothbrush, but that one I never actually used to brush my teeth. I just went and got a toothbrush out of the pack and claimed it from our art studio. And it is absolutely okay if you use a new toothbrush for your art supplies. It is absolutely okay if you don't. It does make a nice little starlit pattern, night sky on a very dark background. Snowfall, winter wonderland scenes. What I'm showing you today, you can use with any designs. Oh, I have a towel over here on my chair just for this kind of thing. So you can use this process, these steps to get to any design you want. There are a lot of painted rock tutorials online. There's Painted Rock Designs online. You don't have to follow mine. You can go look on social media or do a search for them. If you want to follow me on social media, you can find me everywhere but Twitter. Yes, I'm still calling it Twitter. Simply because I think it'll make the people who follow that person a little grumpy with me, and that's fine. Oh yes, but you can find me on social media. I use the hashtags SAHOLTARTIST, which is S.A. Holt Artist. I also use S.A. Holt Studios, SAHOLTSTUDIOS. And I use Susan Holt, SUSANHOLT. And then my website, if you think my art is groovy, makes you happy, is saholtstudios.com. It's SAHOLTSTUDIOS.com. And on Facebook, I have a VIP group that you are all invited to if you are on the Book of the Faces. And that is Chaos and Order Art by Susan Holt. But that's kind of a good good description of me and my art. Chaos and Order. I have my friend E-Paul to thank for that moniker, that description. If you are wanting to get into an online painted rock group, the one I belong to here in Arizona is PHX Hidden Rocks. And I know, and that one is on Facebook. I know there are several other painted rock groups on social media, off social media, around the country. So I know there's some in Canada. I know there's some in Mexico. I know there's some in Europe. So wherever you are, wherever you're tuning in from, you can search and see if there's a painted rock group in your local area. I love painting the rocks, but I don't necessarily like putting them out. So a lot of times I give them to friends and say, I'll take a bag of rocks. I'll say to them, here's your bag of rocks. Keep whichever ones you like, and then put the rest out kind of wherever you go. And I will put them out myself, like on my travels to do errands. But I did have one that kind of blew the minds of everybody in our local painted rock group, because I sent it with a friend of mine who dives, and I made sure it was extra sealed because she wanted to know if she could put it out on her dive. And I said, well, sure. I don't see, well, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to. So made sure it's extra sealed, and oops, I've got little green splotches on this. That's okay. They'll get covered up. And she put it out on one of the really popular dive sites she goes to. And it was found a couple months later by a fellow diver. And the photo is him floating in the water holding the rock in his hand, and it is amazing. The feedback from him was just sheer delight. I do not recommend putting rocks underwater. I especially do not recommend that in an underwater preserve or a specific habitat, just in case nobody finds it. I don't want you to get the wrong idea. I don't want any fish or divers to be harmed by any rocks. So she only put the one out in the water. And she told me about it afterwards, and I was like, oh, I hope it's found soon. And then I completely forgot about it. So when the diver who found it reported it found with that photo, it kind of broke our group. They were like, oh my God, best find location ever. So it was lovely. Okay, we now have our rainbow base layer painted with our regular acrylic paint. I'm gonna take a sip of water. Now we get to go with the sparkly paint. Sparkle, sparkle. It's so exciting. This is my favorite part. I have several different kinds of sparkly paint. It's all acrylic, so it's not something weird. It is all art paint. I don't know as I would call it fine art paint, but it's all good paint. I do have craft store paint that does has similar coverage and does similar things. So if you have craft supply store paint, great, use it. It is actually my favorite paint to use on painted rocks. So I don't know if you can see, that's kind of iridescent and shiny. So now we're just going to paint over what we have there. And the reason we do this and the reason we put down that first layer of paint is because if I did not do that, and I will show you on the bottom of this rock that has been gessoed, you can see through that. It looks streaky. It doesn't look great. It would need at least 3 layers to get the coverage over that white gesso background. But it only takes one color of a base paint, one color of this shiny sparkly paint, iridescent paint. On one of the rocks I actually did several coats of paint. I used the plain acrylic paint, then I used this, then I used glitter paint, because if you cannot use glitter paint for Pride Month, what can you use it for? It is the best. And with glitter paint, and not just loose glitter, the glitter is encased in the paint, so it doesn't usually get all over your house. Now that being said, I have a friend who brought me some very fine gold glitter, and I have added it to my regular gold craft store paint for doing my pour paintings, and it gives it a much more sparkly look, and I absolutely love it. However, as you all know, or potentially know, or are going to learn right now, glitter is considered the syphilis of the craft world. I did not make that up. There's actual memes about it because it gets everywhere. And I have been finding gold glitter everywhere. Yesterday, I was getting ready for bed and I found gold glitter on my neck. I have not had this glitter open for about 3 weeks. There's glitter out where the cat and I play, on her rug. There's sometimes glitter on the bottoms of my feet when I get done here in my studio. I know I spilled a little bit of it, but I did not spill a lot of it. Like there wasn't even enough to get under my pinky nail, and it is everywhere in the house. My poor husband just sighs and puts up with it. He knows who he married. Poor guy. So this is kind of a coppery colored paint. It's very orangey, so that's what I'm using for this. It does kind of knock down the brightness of this orange, but it makes up for it in shiny. So that makes me very happy. As you can see, even though this is kind of a watered down paint, and so is the orange underneath it, we just do the 2 coats. It covers pretty well. Covers nicely. So you're not going to see a whole lot of streakiness. That's the other thing with a paint that is streaky, that is a little watered down. Just let it dry and then go over it again. If you let it dry in between, you'll get a really nice coverage. And if it takes 2 layers or 5 layers, then that's how much it takes. Craft supply store paints are notoriously watery. So that's one of the reasons that I'm using my better acrylic paints on these. And it's because I don't want to spend hours making one painted rock because I have to go over the colors I had already painted 2 or 3 times. That is not something I am interested in doing. It's not how I want to spend my time. I want to spend my time creating more things. Bringing some beauty into the world. And this is a gold paint. It's a very yellow gold paint. So it's going to go right over that yellow and just make it look really iridescent. You'll still see the yellow behind it. Gold paint of any brand is mostly notorious for being a little bit transparent, a little bit see-through. So it's not just you. It may be the paint. I don't know what it is with the gold. A lot of times the silver paints cover really well, but the golds don't. So don't think that your gold paint is trying to betray you. It's just how it is. Just how it is. And if you know that, you can work with it. But since I have the yellow background under here, it's just going to look yellow. If I had a red background under this gold, it would look more rose gold. So you can definitely play with the paint the paint color that is behind your iridescent paints to get different effects. In medieval times, they would actually do an underlayer of pink or red under their gold leaf because it gave it a little bit more depth. It looked more gold than if you put yellow underneath, which makes it look more brassy. Not grassy with a G, brassy with a B. Like a brass candlestick. And yes, you do have to thoroughly rinse your brush every single time you change paint color or paint, because you don't want, on these very straight, very separate lines, you don't want to get those edges blended or the colors blended and mixed up. Now, if you're doing something where you do want the colors blended, like if I wanted this green and yellow to be blended for a more leafy green, then absolutely don't rinse your brush all the way. But also, don't use your paint cap or your paint bottle to dip into. Always put it on a palette if you're blending colors. I am not blending colors, so I'm just dipping into the paint jar or into the cap. And I have done this a million-ty times. So if you're new to painting, use a palette. You can buy one of the little plastic ones with a well, or you can use these little cups from your cold and flu season. Cold meds. Got a little green over there, and that's okay. I can just go back over it with the yellow and gold when it dries. Or if it's in the right spot, I can paint the cactus design over it, or any other design over it. When you're working with painted rocks, you want to keep your design simple. And when I teach, I say KISS. Keep it super simple. Because you want people to excuse me, to notice your rocks from a bit of a distance. Draw them in, but you also want your image to be super readable. And what I mean by readable is you want people to be able to know what that image is as soon as they see it. Our yard guys are here, so you might hear some machinery in the background. I very much could have done a time-lapse video on this, or I could have had this a little bit more prepared, but I want you to get the sense of how much time this actually takes. This is not necessarily this design is not necessarily one where you're gonna sit down and just crank it out in an hour, because of all the paint colors that are involved, because of the different types of paint that are involved, the regular paint and the shiny paint. And the design itself has a lot of different sections to it, different components. Each line on here is a component to the design. So I wanted to make sure you knew that this is going to take a bit. That's okay. It's absolutely okay. And I did set up my workstation before I started painting. So I had all of my tools and materials at hand. And I will tell you, I do not use the expensive brushes. I use the multi-packs that you can find at any art supply store. Acrylic paint is notoriously hard on brushes, especially if you forget to wash them out. I take really good care of my tools and materials, because if I take care of my tools, they will take care of me. Like I said, I've had these brushes for over 15 years and they're still going strong. Even after painting on very bumpy rocks, they're still going strong. I can use these for fine work if I wanted to. My paintings on canvas. I will tell you what I say to everybody. Do not touch the bristles on your brush with your hands, because the oils get into the bristles and it's like conditioner that stays there forever. And what that does is it makes your brushes waterproof. Also, do not lick your paintbrushes. If you need to get a fine tip or a fine line on a brush, dip it in your rinse water and dab off the extra paint. I caution people about this because I was in a medieval recreation group for a while, and I did a lot of reproduction, illumination, and calligraphy, to the point where I was using powdered pigments and chemicals that they would have used back in the day. And one of the things about those powdered pigments, and some modern paints as well, is that they are toxic, poisonous, or deadly. So if you get into the habit of licking your brush and you start working with different tools and materials, and you stay in the habit of licking your brush, you might accidentally off yourself, or at least get yourself sent to the hospital. So just don't lick your brush. That and your saliva wears away at the bristles because it's saliva. It's meant to break things down. And if you are like me and don't want to spend a whole lot of extra money on tools, then keep your brushes rinsed well. Don't touch them, don't lick them, and they will serve you for many, many, many years. And if you ever see your kids chewing on a brush or sticking it in their mouths, just tell them not to, because you do not need that kind of panic in your house. I have had friends through the same group that have had to break themselves of that habit, and they say, one of them said it was worse than trying to quit smoking. So, yeah, don't lick your brushes. Not only that, but acrylic paint is plastic. We as Americans don't need any more plastic in our diets. I'm grumpy about a lot of things. Didn't know if you could tell. Pretty sure you could. The world is weird. At the moment, things are falling apart, so I think making painted rocks and art that's pretty and surprising, and you find it when you're out and about in the world, it brings a smile to your face. It's so important right now. Okay, so there is the iridescent set of paint painted on the rocks. Yay! Yes, the purple and the blue are probably not completely dry yet. Oh, that might be good enough. Excellent. Excellent. Rinse my brush out really, really well. Another sip of water. Okay. At this stage, I would usually wait till it dries and then paint the bottom of the rock. But I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to go right for painting the top, because I don't want you to wait overnight till this paint dries. So we're going to go right into painting the silhouettes. Dun, dun, dun. And these are saguaro cactus because I live in Arizona. If you live somewhere that does not have saguaro cactus, you can do little trees like this. You can do palm trees. There is a whole bunch of other design ideas online. And I'm going to turn my rocks so that the pride flag is going vertically, not horizontally. And that's because when I do my mountains in the background here, my hills, I don't want to cover up one or two colors of the flag. I want it to be seen. So I'm going to work in this direction. And And I'm going to use my same little flat brush that I've been using to make the lines. Excuse me. Simply because on this size of a rock, it makes sense for me to use this size of a brush. If I were working with larger rock, I would use my larger brush for this. And by the way, your rocks, you need to wash them with dish soap and a scrub brush. You don't want to bring them in the house until they're clean, because they are porous, and you don't want to accidentally have some little crawly critters come out of the pores of the rock and get into your house. Here in Arizona, that could be anything from little gnats to baby scorpions. We don't need that. So wash your rocks outside. Also, you don't want to clog your drains with the dirt from the rocks. If you live in a place that is known for a specific mountain or mountain range, feel free to have a photo of that so you can paint that if you want it in the background. I have lived in Arizona for most of my life, so I am just going to make things that look kind of like Arizona rocks and mountains. I'm not going to be super specific about which mountain it is. Sometimes my stuff comes out looking like a specific mountain or specific rock formation that we have around here, but most of the time it does not. And that's okay, because we we have so many rocks here in the desert that inevitably somebody says, oh yeah, oh, is that such and such a place? Oh yeah, that reminds me of Flagstaff or Tucson or Phoenix or wherever it reminds them of. And I am very glad to say, yes, thank you for noticing. That's what they see in it. I am very happy that they are pleased with it. So we're just going to do the mountains at the bottom. We're going to do this for each rock. And I do like to put in like a little mesa or a hill or something that kind of comes up higher than the rest of it. Sometimes I'll even put in like a little butte on top. I have grown up all over the western US, so I have a lot of mountains and ridges I can choose from in my memory banks to kind of combine, do stuff with. And on some of these rocks, I have the pride flag going left to right, and sometimes I have them going right to left. Just depends on how I painted them on the rock and if I noticed which direction they would be going or not. See, here's that little green blob in the yellow. And it will not be an issue because I am going to paint over it in black. If you don't want to use black because it looks too harsh, like if you have a really soft background, you can always use different colors. You can use a nice gray or a brown, or you can even do the same color theme as the background of your rocks. Just do it solid colors. Honestly, doing the mountains or hills like this is the easiest part of these painted rocks. I try not to go more than about 1/3 of the way up on the rock, but sometimes I get a little carried away with my mountains. I make them a little tall. I don't mean to. Like this first one, I got a little carried away, and it goes about a little under halfway up. But sometimes going with the flow gets you unexpected results. And I mean the artistic flow, like you're just vibing about how tall you want this rock, or the shape of the top of it doesn't look quite right. So you just adjust it, and then adjust it a little more. And then pretty soon you're halfway up the rock and you're thinking to yourself, well, I did not mean to do that. So it's fine. It's just paint and they're just rocks. This one is really symmetrical. I don't think it matters which direction I paint on it. If you go out and look for your own rocks to paint, do not steal your neighbor's landscape rocks. I am lucky enough that my bestie was getting rid of her river rocks from her landscape, so I have those here. But any local big box hardware type store has rocks in their garden centers that are for sale. Just make sure you get river rocks that are very smooth. You can also go to some of the rock quarries. There's one right up the road from me, not too far from here. It's about 5 miles out. That they know the members of the local painted rock group, because we usually call first before we show up, and we always make sure it's okay to buy a small amount of rocks. So we bring our 3 to 5 gallon buckets, and we go over there, and we sometimes show up en masse, and they just smile at us, take us to the right rock pile, and then we get our rocks. Okay, we get our rocks, and then they weigh them on their tiny little scale, because it's not a dump truck full of rocks, and they giggle and let us have a small amount of rocks. Okay, we're gonna move on to painting the saguaro cactus now. So that's where these brushes come in. So that one, you can see it's flat. This one is the same configuration, only it's a little smaller. And then my small round brushes as well. I don't think that rock is big enough for this brush. That one is. So I'm going to do my large cactus first because I want to make sure I have room for it. So we're going to do the largest piece first. Largest design first, then we're going to go smaller and smaller. That way we are assured that everything's going to fit. Load up my brush. This is where a steady hand comes in. I also like the fact that I can follow the lines that the Pride Flame makes for me to follow. If you are not comfortable doing this freehand, get out a measuring tape, get out a ruler, whatever helps you be happy with your design. And I'll do a couple different designs. I'm going to do the cactus on this one for sure. Voila. One center stalk. And then one arm. Two arms. I offset the arms of my cactus a little bit because I just think it looks better, especially on such a simple design. Saguaros don't grow that way. They have this center stalk and then they have the arms come off at the same place around the central cactus. But for a painted rock that you want to make look dynamic, I do it that way. So they're a little bit offset on the bottom here and on the top. It kind of makes this arm look like it's farther back and this arm look like it's farther forward, or vice versa, depending on the way you squint at it. Then I'm using my slightly smaller brush to do the same thing for a shorter cactus, but it's actually up on this hill. So I'm gonna go taller. I'm gonna go higher on that. And these will look a little similar. That's fine. Rinse my brush out. And I will usually do all of the same size cactus on all the rocks and then wash my brush out. But I think I want to do some different designs on these over here. So I'm just going to do this cactus. This one is going to be a cactus rock. I might do some other stuff on the other ones. Didn't see that coming, did ya? So this one is going to look farther away because it's done with a smaller brush. This is one of the round brushes. Okay, and then take my teeny tiny little brush. Wet. Just a little bit of paint on it, and then I'm gonna do, I'll do over here. Let's see. Remember when you were little and you just did those little birds? Just like that. We have a plethora of hunting birds in the desert. We even have hawks, we have eagles, we have osprey, we have falcons. There's a whole bunch of birds. We have, of course, we have vultures, buzzards. We also have some cormorants over by the lake in Tempe. And occasionally, if big enough storms come through, we get some brown pelicans in. So on this one, I'm going to do one of these. It's just a tree. It's kind of my own design. All of these are my own designs, by the way. This isn't anything I've picked up anywhere else. I just kind of started doing them, and I enjoy them. And with the trees, we know there's a trunk and we know there are branches, and the branches grow towards the sky. So this is our sky, so we want the branches to come up and out of the trunk into the sky. We have a lot of kind of wispy trees here, like our palo verdes and our mesquite trees. And they have relatively narrow trunks for the size of tree that they are. So I do 2 lines to kind of outline the area that I want the tree to take up. It'll take up more space. I just go back through here. I'll put more branches on. I do make an effort to not make these branches straight. That is no pun intended. And I do that because then I can, like, this little curve in this branch, I will just put another branch off of that. And I want to keep in mind when I paint like this, the branches will all be reaching for the sky. A lot of people make trees and they put the branches down, which is great if you're doing a weeping willow, but if you're not, if you're doing a desert tree, a deciduous tree that's got its leaves blown off and heading for fall or hasn't budded for spring yet, you want to make sure that they go up and out. So that's how I do this tree. Little deciduous trees. I like them. I think they're cute. And then, oh, what the heck. Over here on top of this little mesa, this little hill, little butte, I might put a little cabin. And to do my little cabins, I draw a square. I paint it in. Then at the top, do a triangle that overlaps the eaves. Paint it in. And then I wait for that to dry, and I'll go back in and put in some white for like the little windows and stuff. And I'll even put in like a little chimney, which is a little rectangle off to the side. And I can do smoke just by going dot, 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 dot. Little line, little line. And sometimes I'll make this into a door or or little windows. Well, there we go. Yeah. So there's a bunch of things you can do with landscapes. I'll even do one of my palm trees for you. And my inspiration for the palm trees is because there are a lot of palm trees here. There's a lot. It's a lot. They're everywhere. So this time I'm going to use my smaller flat brush that I like. I'm going to start where I want the head of the palm tree to start. So I think right about there. Just pull that down, and then I'll shape it a little bit better with a little bit more paint. It's okay if the trunk isn't perfect. Nothing in nature is perfect. Nothing in nature is symmetrical. Mostly, nothing in nature is symmetrical. Mostly. I'm gonna take my bigger of the two round brushes that I have. It's still a little brush. And I'm just going to make the ribs of the palm fronds. And yes, this looks a little weird now, but we're going to fill that in. And I'm going to take my smaller of the two round brushes. Just fill in those little fronds. I'm going to tell you right now, it's okay if your palm trees don't look like my palm trees. It's okay if nothing you make looks like anything I make, because we have different brains. Our brains think differently from one another. Our hands are different. Our muscles are different. They're built different. Skeletons are built different, so even though we may be painting the same or the similar thing, it's never gonna look exactly like mine. It's just not. And this is how forgers are caught, because their hands don't move like the hands of whatever master painted whatever masterpiece. Yours not going to look like mine. And that's great, by the way. I don't want what you do to look like what I do. I want it to look like yours. I want you to give it some personality. And that comes from how you're built, both mentally and physically. I'm going to fill in this so it's a little bit darker. Since it's dried a little bit, I have extra paint on my brush. So please don't compare yourself to me when you paint. It's not a kind thing to do to your brain. Don't second guess yourself. It's not worth it. We're all different. We're all gonna paint different. And that's okay. It's better than okay. It's wonderful. So because this rock is shallower, bottom to top, I am going to make the cactus on this one smaller. And I'm going to put a lot more of them on. It's a design choice. So you can do a bunch of little cactus. You can do one big cactus. You can even do different cactus. Might throw a prickly pear on here. Prickly pear cactus. That's where the prickly pear jam and jelly comes from the fruit. It does not matter if these look exact. We're not going for we're not going for exact botanicals. If that is what you're into doing and you absolutely love creating botanical drawings, do some on some painted rocks. Just like the Zentangle. There are no rules. About what you can and cannot paint on these rocks. A lot of people do words on their rocks. Beautiful little sayings, little pick-me-ups. I do not. I can do calligraphy. I don't want to do it on a rock. Also, I wouldn't put anything derogatory on a painted rock. Like, I might have a secret message on the bottom, but certainly not on the top. I think that these rocks with the rainbow flag and the sparkles have plenty of a message of love and support on them already. Put a little bird up here. Maybe I'll put one over here because Harris hawks hunt in pairs. Yeah, looks pretty good. Okay. This one I'll paint later. Yes, that one I'll paint later because I want to make sure I have enough time. I have as much time as I want, but I want to make sure I show you how I do the bottom. And this one is dry enough that I can do that. I'm gonna flip it over. And I work on a paper towel so that I can have kind of a buffer between that and my really messy table because I don't want the tacky paint. This is dry, but it's not cured. So for me to show you, I want a kind of clean background to work on just in case the rock does stick to it. I don't have to repaint or touch up the front. So this is the easy peasy part, painting the back. Just put a little dab of paint and then take my brush and I load up my brush and then I go around and make sure I cover all of the edges. Paint that I have on there. Like I said before, you don't have to make this look pretty, but I, being a professional artist, want to represent myself as such in all of my arts. So I want to cover the edges, kind of the splotchy edges, so that the gesso underneath is all tucked in. That way it doesn't get gooey if it gets wet. Not that it should, but I've seen some rocks that do. Now at this point I will let that dry and then I will decoupage on my little labels, and it has found me, post on Facebook, PHX Hidden Rocks, hashtag Susan Holt or S.A. Holt Artist, keep, leave, or hide. And then I have my website on there, which is www.saholtstudios.com. And then I sign and date the rock because I am professional. I'm a professional. Please try this at home. And I will also encourage you to go onto Pinterest and Etsy and all these other places where you can find painted rock designs. Oh, I forgot to do those. Let's do those. Let's put my little suns on there. Yeah, go find your own designs that you want to try. Absolutely. This is still acrylic paint, but it's a different mix. It's the one I use for doing my dot designs. So it's a lot looser than the paint I use to have full coverage on just a layer or two. So I'm just going to take my dot tool. I'm going to find the perfect place for the sun to go and put it on there. Easy peasy mac and cheesy. You can also do this with the end of your paintbrush, as I said before. It's about the same size as my dot tool. So you don't have to go out and buy a complete set of these, especially if you're not into dot designs and dot mandalas. Use what you have at home. If you have something round and it can make a dot of paint on something, great. Use that. And because we have every color in the rainbow as our background, I don't want to make the sun into something, I don't want to make, oops, I'm doing the design on that one yet. I don't want to make the sun a color that we already have on the background, because I want it to be its own feature. I want it to stand out. And if you are here in the desert Southwest, you know that the sun looks bright white at some parts of the day. Okay, so there we have 3 beautiful painted rocks. One of them is upside down because the paint on it is a thicker white paint and needs to dry for a while before I put anything else on it. And then we have one that I will work on when I'm done with this video. Don't know what design I'm going to put on it yet, but we'll see. Now I want to talk to you about sealing your rocks. I seal my rocks. A lot of painted rock artists don't, but since these are going to be put outside in the Arizona sun, I want to make sure that they are protected from that sun until someone finds them. That could be an hour, it could be a week. There is a separate UV varnish that you can get. I have not been putting that on my painted rocks lately because I have been using this, which has some UV protectant in it, because it is for wood, metal, plastic, and more. Acrylic painted rocks are the and more. So I would shake this up really, really well, especially if it's if you haven't opened it yet. Shake it up a lot, more than that. Take off the cap. And what I do with this is I will set these rocks outside. You do not do this inside. And I have a set of plastic shelves outside, and I'll put down some wax paper underneath them. I'll spray. I start with them upside down. I start with them on this side. Spray one way, then I spray from the right, then I spray the other way, then I spray from the left. And what this does, this 4-direction spray, is it gets all into all these little tiny nooks and crannies. Like if you have a seam in your rock like this, or there's a big divot, it kind of gets all those all the nooks and crannies from every different angle that you possibly can, and it seals your rock better than just going from the top. I don't ever go directly down from the top with my rocks to seal them. It just doesn't do what I want it to do. So I spray this side first, spray the bottom side first, and then I let them sit until I can go out and tap it and it feels dry. If it feels tacky, I absolutely do not flip it over. Once it is dry, then I flip it over and I'll spray all 4 directions again with the sealant. This one is not sealed, This one is sealed, and you can tell the difference just by looking at them, especially if I shift them like this in the light. So this one is sealed, this one is not. But it will be. Will be someday after I'm done teaching my workshop. So this is dry enough. It's not dry around the edges, but because I have this like little ridge, that's okay. Take my, and this is watered down. Take my little label. I'll show you how to do this real quick. Turn it to the back. And I know some people will hem and haw and say, no, this is the wrong way to do it. But honestly, this is the fast way to do it. Get it all tapped down, and then I put a little glue on the top. I just go over it with my finger, make sure it's fully covered. Voila, decoupage. Is it the right way to do decoupage? Probably not, but it's got a layer underneath that sticks it to the rock and a layer on top that kind of coats it. Yes, this is water-based glue, which is why, another reason why we need to use this spray to spray it and seal it, because then our label doesn't come off. If you don't want to put a label and you just want to put your name or the name of the local rock group, you know, or whatever on information on there, have a great day. Whatever it is you want on there. These pens are fantastic. Your paint pens. Make sure that's dry enough to write with or write on. I do it right under my little label there. Voila. Other than letting it dry, letting the paint cure, that rock is done. These others are not quite done yet, but I will get them done. And then I will take them outside. And when I take them outside, I just put them on an old cookie sheet I found at a secondhand store. Brought it home, washed it up, got as much crud off as I could, and then I just set these on there when they're done. So when I do take them out to spray, I have an entire full cookie sheet. Now you don't have to go that far. You don't have to have an entire full cookie sheet of rocks. You can just do a couple at a time, not a problem. Go spray it. And if you do this with a friend, if you make painted rocks with a friend, then you can go in on the cost of everything. You know, somebody buys the craft paint, somebody buys the gesso, somebody buys the spray, whatever it is you need. You do it with friends, and it's also fun to do this with friends. The workshop I'm going to give is, like I said, to a bunch of artists, to a bunch of people who already paint rocks. So it's going to be super fun. We are going to have an amazing time. And I hope this helps, and I hope this shows you kind of my process and what I do and how I create my little rocky masterpieces. And I hope you give it a try and have fun with it. Put this back down here. All right, so that's going to be it for me. I know I have kept you on here for a while. It says an hour and 54 minutes, so that's a couple of hours to do all of this. But I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope you took the time to take pauses and a potty break. And I hope you have an artful weekend and an artful rest of your week. And I look forward to seeing you right back here on my YouTube channel again. Thank you for joining me, and thanks for sticking with me this long. I'll talk to you later. Bye, everyone.